Let's see. Well, my son is practicing Crazy Train. And that is a good description of this planet and all the fucked up people on it. I talk about this a lot, but people don't respond to it, but they love going around the fringe with it. There's a secret. It's not so secret, but for some reason it seems like a secret, but it's out everywhere. It's a cult, it's a religion. It's how everything runs, but people don't break it down. And then you just get so fatigued and tired and starved out that even if you see it, you pretty much forget about it soon after. I'm just easing into my walk, though. I'm not. Like, can you change things? So I just had some beef liver. That's disgusting, especially when you eat it fresh. All the supplements I took are just like hitting my system. Having some black tea with butter. And when will you know ketosis is working? When will you know you're getting a lot leaner? When you get to the place where you want to puke and you hate fat and protein and you just crave carbohydrates and you're eating enough, taking in plenty of calories, you're able to work out. And that's the same holds true with when you're on a carbohydrate diet. You know, a carbohydrate based diet is you'll crave more protein, you'll crave more fat, and you won't allow yourself to have any. And what drives all these weight loss diets is deficiency. Your body has to reach a place of utter deficiency where there's just not enough calories to sustain your activity. Now, most people don't ever reach that threshold, right? Where they either need to exhaust their total calories through the day by doing what I'm doing here, or they need to jump into more HIIT style training, which I will be doing. But all the leg training I've been doing has really added up and stacked up, compounded on the walking to where my quads are just retaining a good amount of body weight as compared to the past where my legs, when I looked in the mirror the year prior, a year and a few months ago, and I finally got back up north. I thought I was going to be looking at like kind of this Greek god type statuary, right? And instead, what was facing me in the mirror was like, I looked like I'd been through Auschwitz. No kidding. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. It looked like I was about a week or two away from just utter starvation. The asymmetrical hips, The legs look like little stilts. I had never seen my body like that. And it was just from carnivore and walking. And I got so narrow-mindedly blindsided by just focusing on the walk. And I think that appeals to a lot of people where they're like, I want to sign up for that. That's where people are right now, is they're addicted. They want something that's going to change their life. They want something that's going to show that their life isn't going to remain the same every single day, that there's going to be a change in direction. High carb regenerator, I'm not putting him down. I could see what he's going through. And I hear a lot of people exclaiming this that are just they're stuck in obese mode and they don't know what the hell to do. And they're listening to all these different people, and there's an air pollution going on with information. And most information is just entertainment. And the rational aspect of how to think and how to articulate and how to break things down and how to simplify, it's not entertaining. You know? If you could remember ever being a good student or really focusing on something and learning, it's not fun. Like if you learned an instrument, which I know what it's like because I've tried, but I never really got into it. There's a lot of abusive distractions in my childhood that are part and parcel to what I talk about. And you will be what you could only call spiritually assaulted. And it's not to blame women, but it's a very feminine energy. And it's to say that a lot of the things that are happening where you feel this, like what happened with Jake Barber, what he was talking about, or Chris Bledsoe. Imagine if a female, I was just reading this article that was just horrifying. It was about early Osiris type worship and them completely dismembering a person's body and putting it back together, a female in specific, to go through this sort of, so when you think about the rituals, the long-standing, long-term rituals, those have never gone anywhere. What do you think Epstein Island is? Those operations are still going. They're ongoing. It's a praise and a worship of samsara and not putting any bounds on it. Right? So, what do you think Gordon Flowers is going to do? Alex from CP Predator Catch. What do you think he's going to do if he came face to face with information that connected him with such a big ring, which would probably never happen, but let's say it did? He would be wiped out and obliterated. They don't care if you're trying to address the symptoms. What the agenda cares about is keeping a smooth operation going. But when that doesn't necessarily happen, they turn it into an act, into a play, into a ritual and unto itself. They will, if you get past, it's like every story you see, the Lego movie, the Ant movie, the Little Bee movie, all these fucking movies that tell the same story over and over again. It's about a man, or the Matrix. It's about a man escaping reality only to realize, quite possibly, that that man's consciousness has become the actual sun. Okay? That the ideology and the principles that were adhered to and followed were so against the carnal aspects of the temporal world that they infused the principles themselves, became the man, and the man had to die because he was born of a woman, right? So you see this story over and over again. It's depicted in so many different little ways, but the message is clear. And that is, it is the Ubermensch, it is the Overman, it is Friedrich Nietzsche, right? It is the person who's being persecuted because everyone's jealous, right? They feel a particular energy and they want to dissect and break apart this individual, but it's not the individual that's in action or in play. It really is, like, I'm not going to say holy force, because holy really is spelled with an H, and it really is about a whole. And if you look at all the Masonic traditions and you look at this circle and what even stellar mass means, like star mass, it's signified by like this freaking period staying inside a circle. You can look at it any way you want. And then those Masonic markers or parameters on the sides, when you look at the buildings that have them, this Masonic hall does over here. It's a signet, it's a signature of time. It's saying this is what happens. So if you were to look at, in a holographic sort of way, if you were to look at the Star of David, and you were to see that all these points, the Metatron's cube, all the geometrical structures represented a rotation, an astral theological rotation, where the same general energy now reaching another position is now a completely different number system or perspective, but it's still chained and linked back to its origin. So you have to begin to look at things as integer or the base number, right? Subset. And what happens is you have a flippening that occurs where that trifecta, right, was sharing information and cleaving off. The best way to describe this is Zoroastrian's law, fourth proposed law to thermodynamics, right? Where the energy was moving around and it was always thinking ahead. It was always sharing to a secondary subset of a system that also reached maximal enthalpy, right? And that is what Zoroastrian's law is that when you have two bodies that reach that equilibrium, you will always have a third, and then it will just keep going on. Because there is no stopping the entropy. Okay? And that's what this is. This is a chaos machine. Why do you think that George Bush acquitted the son of Sam, David Berkowitz? Right? Why do you think I post the things that I do? Because they are talking about the same exact thing. If I'm right now walking and I'm working with my energy, right? And I realize, okay, I have this dichotomy, there's this split, where I have realized that everything that I'm doing is based on deficiency. But if I get too deficient in any given area, what's going to happen? Well, what if I get overly fortified? What's going to happen? Like if I eat too much beef liver, my liver will literally shut down. My liver enzymes will be all over the place. My Heme copper iron levels, my copper levels, my vitamin A is going to be through the roof. You know, you'll be able to see this when your eyes start turning yellow and shit. You know, and this is going off on a tangent, but is it? Look at what a ridiculous man Liver King always was. He was always dabbling and playing with, right? He was a little man. He's like 5'4" or something. He's like a little tiny guy. And he had a dream, right? And that dream coincided with a lot of growth hormone. And growth hormone makes your organs grow. You don't reverse from the changes. They're inalterable. But what happens is when you get off the growth hormone, you're left with all the funkiness and the enlarged butthole, enlarged organs, enlarged nose, enlarged balls, enlarged penis, enlarged liver, enlarged everything. Everything's enlarged, but still physiologically, you are the same person. So everything's overly enlarged. Your heart is overly enlarged, okay? Everything grows. Your feet grow. And you want to be healthy, like with what I'm doing, and you want to take advantage of slow wave sleep cycle right when you're coming out of it. And sometimes you want to fast, but exercise, particularly lower body exercises. This is why people have to do squats. You have to figure out how you're going to make yourself do squats. So there's a transcendence beyond a superimposed self that is being printed upon you that is destined to fail. They have already written your story. They have already written the book. They have already consigned the female, the witch that's going to take you down. And even more so, the tricky part of this is they created a matrix, a system, a sort of pyramid scheme or schema where it's not even the female witch energy that's bad because they were abused, right, by these males that then switched places, switched sexes. And so these Rosicrucians are believing in this thing that seems absolutely mad. But on the lower rungs, they're like singing Hava and Nagila Hava, and they're perfectly just jumping into the fire, and they're happy. The males are happy that they're going to become female, and the females are happy they're going to become males in another reincarnation, and they're going all for this, but they're fucking everything up because they don't realize that staying the same, right, is the goal. But many people are outside of themselves, out of sorts. They're in the wrong bodies, right? And you have to say, I'm going to hold my ground. You have to stop looking at the sex. You have to stop looking at the influence. You have to hold your ground, and you have to continue to just be who you are in action, in motion. It doesn't matter what you're shaped like, what they say you are, right? Strength has to be the thing that you're focusing on, and development. And when you strengthen yourself and you develop yourself to a certain degree, right? And you do it against all odds, a transcendence occurs. And this is what Maslow recognized in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is seen in like Plutchik's wheel, with the emotional wheel. You transcend to a level where it's like, if you were taken into some sort of CIA operation unit and they're like, we don't know what the fuck is keeping this person alive, ticking, but they're staying alive. Fascinating. We're going to have to just study this person, right? Meanwhile, in all the other rooms for year upon year, they've been prodding and doing the stuff like that's alluded to in Stranger Things, you know, with Millie Bobby Brown and is it Matthew McConaughey or Matthew? Then I think Matthew Broderick, right? Yeah, I can't remember, but he's a good actor. I remember him from Fluke and a bunch of other. Modine, Matthew Modine, I think it is. Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of people die. Obviously, you got Hulk Hogan, Michael Mendelsohn, right? Ozzy Osbourne, of course. Huxtable, Malcolm Jamal Warner, and many others are going to pass away. Like they say the 3 rule, right? But it was really based on localization of recognizing 3 people that passed away. But if you notice it's far more than 3. And it really does point at and hint at a sort of final destination scenario, right? Where there is an order. So when you begin to look at the order, then you look at rhythms, algorithms that seem like they're taking place in nature. Well, if nature is entirely evil, that is, the ontology isn't something that you can trust, is being orchestrated and directed, right? And reverts back to an algorithm and has to have a sort of codified algorithm that it plays out, right? But it can be set to a certain harmonic that absolutely doesn't try to keep itself intact whatsoever. In other words, even if you set it on some seemingly evil harmonic, which there are, it's going to just go along with that. And that's essentially what's happening, is that they've turned the dial to control the whole holistic aspect of everything, the totality, that everything that the sun ray touches, right? So there's been a lot of reports, and I don't know if they're like real image captures, but supposedly that there's like this second sun, right? And I've been hearing about this for years. Even about there being another moon, or like somebody that I do like to listen to that's finally caught up with the greed factor, which is like his downfall. It's Crow 777, and he always came out with good information, but he stopped really trying to produce the information for information's sake. I don't know if he ever did that. I think he was always thinking in terms of money and capturing. And it takes a selflessness when you approach this type of information, because there's no way you could ever be repaid. And that type of selflessness is depicted in the Zarathustra, right? And then later told in the story of King Isis, or Jesus, right? Or Isis. And what I always contended is it's about the pure sun. It's about a bigger, greater, more profound statement of an actual pure sun, in actuality, going through all of the strife, all the samsara. The entire universe is against him. The cymatics are against him. All the technology that's always been in play is against him. And the only way that that pure sun is going to make it through is by losing weight, by losing the fuel stage, by dropping off all that is false and only retaining and holding on to what is real, which is the fight, right? And it's that type of fight that we find in every animated being that creates a unification and brings people together. And when I say people, I'm not talking about from a humanitarian sense. People are those with personalities, persona. Many dogs are more people than assumably human people are. I think we know that by now, right? But the level of suppression and repression, the rigors that they've gone through, right? You're looking for diamonds, natural diamonds, because they can make better diamonds in 5-6 weeks. I think they even got it down further. They can make gold. Don't you think they always have been able to? It's always been thought that gold came from star birth, but we need to really posit and posture whether or not stars can be created and are actually generated and created. And I think they might have gotten greedy and thought, okay, it's time for another big, huge gold production moment. And so we're going to need to take the old sun out and produce a new sun. How are we going to do this? And I think there's a possibility that they could do this on a micro scalable level, right? And actually move and power up something that can be actually transported within a sort of box, if you will. And this has been talked about and leaked for quite some time as far as producing dark matter, antimatter, It's been called a lot of things, producing 0 point energy, which may or may not have any correlation to this, but I think it does. And really creating what could be assumably become a black hole, and that there's more than one of these. There's an inversion of energy. It's collapsing on itself. But by it collapsing on itself, it's absorbing and taking up the false ideology and the false memetics and the false code that's around it. It's eating up code. And then it's spitting out a new code. It's resetting. Right? And so there may be something going on to that effect. So I'm in a really weird stage right now where I just have like fat drooping off of my body, but my musculature underneath is really solid, but I'm also not highly trained yet because I've only been training for about 5 weeks so far. I haven't even hit the hypertrophic stage pretty much, you know? I think I just am starting to this week. And then the other weird thing going on, I'm burping up beef liver and I find that disgusting. You just have to force yourself to eat it. Especially when you're freshly making it, it's just the most disgusting thing you'll ever eat. And you'll wonder why you're doing it, and you'll think about all the blood, and you'll think about the process. And if you don't, there's something seriously wrong with you. Because the death and the sacrifice that's done on your account, you're not special. Okay? You are just another suicidal robot, just another fuck up. Everyone is. Everything is. And the transcendence that occurs comes from a place, comes from a persona that's saying, basically what they're trying to find is this hidden force that is very much correlated from the outside as a Jesus Christ type energy. So people just grab at that and accept it, even though the narrative has been bent. It's Jewish light. They're being refed something. And it's actually by them believing in that, they're buying a bleached out aspect to the story that disconnects them from the allowance of what they act like they're going for in the first place, what they pretend to do, because they're all doing witchcraft in the churches. I figured this out a long time ago. The preacher wants the money, right? And he's waiting for, he wants to take all the money from everybody out in the, all the parish, or whatever religion you want to call it, the synagogue of Satan, synagogue, right? Jordan Maxwell went through a lot of this years ago, and then people called him nuts. You'll still see the remnants of what they did to him and how they cast him out. And then there are true depictions and true stories where it's like, wait a minute, was he a charlatan? And that's something you have to think about when you look at yourself, is that you are a charlatan. You're primarily made up of material that is codified and connected to a long chain of abuse. Your forefathers, your mother, like our mothers were whores and our fathers were philandering, horny pieces of shit, murderous psychopaths. And then it flipped over and you had these murderous psychopath grandmas, and that's the true nature of humanity. And they embraced it. They embraced the cult. They embraced the religion. This is, now kids these days, youngsters think that because they're able to amass a certain collection of subscribers, but they become whores to the eye of providence, to the eye of the beholder. That is the collection of people that are looking on them, pleased and entertained. But they're only entertained in your demise, in the order that you conform. There's a delight placed in seeing you fall, in seeing you get 600 100,000 subscribers and taking in tens of thousands of dollars per month, right? And suddenly think that you are the baller, right? You got easily bought off. And you are going on to the next round because you're so empty, because there's nothing there, because you proved that you are not rising above, right? That you're not rejecting the money, you're not rejecting the coin. It's the truth. And that's why men like Albert Pike, it's confusing as it may be, because when you look at this, it's the same order, it's the same system, right? And this is why on the surface you have people like Abramovich, calling Trump a master magician. He's not. She's praising, you got to understand what's really happening here is the witches and the druids are at odds. And Trump just placed himself as the successor. He's sort of a pope. That's why he was shown as a pope. Like the pope's nothing. There's a black pope, but there's even the black pope's nothing, really. Because what's running the energy, what's running the world comes down to very complex ideologies that have to exist in another dimensional zone, because the physics in this area completely contradict that. You'd never be able to correlate the hyperbolic and the parabolic aspects that are occurring there. It's just insane. It's insane. You have to be able to think in the way of a physicist, and good luck trying to preambulate in a world, right? Like Linus Pauling or Alan Turing or Conrad Zuse. Those men lived in a strange little world. They didn't live in reality. They couldn't live in reality. They lived in a world of really mathematics, and they thought in a way of nuance and culture, right? And what I mean by that is how lactobacilli or probiotics or microorganisms behave, right? They don't cross-correlate to what we think of as society here, but that's what's keeping everything running, right? Fibroblasts and all sorts of shit that's going on levels where there's just, when we think about destruction and we think about death, when we think about apoptosis or autophagy, we use those terms rather than cessation or death, right? Rather than accretion and anabolism, right? Which is really the way it is. But they defy the physics that affect us intentionally. Okay, intentionally. Gravity is something that's being done to us intentionally. It doesn't actually exist. There's no reason for it to exist. Like, gravity is something that was expounded upon and used to manipulate us and ground us and make us feel like we're in prison, right? But the effects of gravity are far lesser from a natural state, a true ontological state, that we are completely removed from. That's why we fantasize about superheroes and being superhuman. That's not, being superhuman really isn't super anything. It's just being ourselves. That's why witches would be depicted as flying around, or vampires are flying around. They defy physics. They defy natural law. And I've talked to many a people, you can take this how you want to, who have seen people floating up onto the ceiling that were into really dark shit, right? And even if you go to places like the Mystery Spot up in Santa Cruz, really close by here, many places around the world, up in Truckee Tahoe area. There's a whole place where you can stand there and you're actually standing completely sideways, right? So this gets into true magnetic north, the flux that's going on there, and the fact that the entire magnetic field is being, so if there isn't a constant, a polar constant, then what is a pole? Why is it weakening, right? And why isn't it absolute? That right there tells you a lot. Okay, that tells you a lot. Because you have the EM, the electromagnetism, and then you have the strong, weak, and weak nuclear forces, right? That start to intensify as you, if you take like a positive and a negative, right, position there, just like we talked about, and you take this magnet and you start to distance it away right before it just drops off and there's nothing there. That's where that nuclear force starts. That's what holds us together. Okay, so when you get into that and you get into the areas of cymatics, if it's holding you together, then it's superimposing a shape on you. It's superimposing a form. It's doing so on a molecular scale where it's keeping you someone that you're not, right? Or something that you're not, that would never have been. And even more so, then they blend in how the tapestry, this multi-generational fucked up tapestry of familiar lines and spiritual energies, where most of this is done by way of technology, but then it doesn't discount the spiritual aspect, that there are people who should have never been born, that are born from complete and total dysfunction and toxicity and torment, rape. You know, I don't even want to get into it, but you can see the process going through, literally the process church, Project Gladio, Operation Gladio, Monarch, Michael Aquino, all that shit that's going on. If you want to catch up on this, go on to Operation GCD and check it out, or the Underclass, Austin Picard. But this shit's quite real because it's made real. And when there's no longer a stage, when there's no longer a dimension to display it, right? So when you get into the true fight that's going on, the maddening aspect of it is, this is when you're going to lose your money, okay? When you enter the fight is when you're going to lose your money. There's no way you can keep a straight face and talk about this and go to work every day. When you see it and you challenge it and you begin to confront it and you attempt to abolish it with your mind, going through the mental mind operations, all the things that you're recognizing here with these codified systems, the Star of David, a transitional energy order, the Merkaba, when you start to play with that and take it apart and begin to see how the inverted pentagram, the satanic pentagram, why is that being worshipped? You can see this Graves character, even Miscavige and others who are following this very dark path. You can see it tearing them apart. They don't look healthy. They don't look normal. They feel and look like they are lost, they are dead, and they are stuck in a dark agenda that is keeping them prisoner, right? And this did happen to me, and the rituals were done on me, and I felt that darkness. And then it tries to get you, and all I was picturing is that God above everything here, everyone, right? That's what I was picturing. That's what I was focusing on, how I got myself out of that. Which I can't say you completely get out of it, but you begin to see the darkness around you all the time. You see that the darkness is always present. It's always there. And all the rituals that have been done everywhere, you can feel it on the land, you can feel it on the people. We're stuck deep in it. And even more so when you assume a self, what percentage of you is ever involved fully as to say that you're really actively there at any given time? When you start to break that apart, this is what really fucks with people's minds or brains, is the fact that they're only a partial person. They appear to be a person. You see the person coming, you greet them by their name, but most people are phantoms. They're just kind of not there at all. And then when you learn more about neurolinguistic programming and the communication, you see the breakdown of people that you swore were these constants that are suggested in the Master Key System by Charles F. Haanel, a high-level, high-degree Mason, where he talks about the fact that to them, at that time, that you were just a theoretical abstract ego if you weren't a mother or a father or a sister or a brother, right? But the truth is that none of those titles exist. Just like a manager doesn't really exist, you're supplicating. Someone's taking on responsibility, right? But it's only because they're trying to reach out for an identity that they don't have. So they're reaching out. They feel a loss of being a self, and they feel a loss of power. And the way their little tiny brain is going to come up with a solution is they need to be a manager. They need to manage something. So some people just start managing their home, right? Some people start, and then when they do, they're paid off. They're broken off little tiny pieces for the slave morality. And it's like a monkey on a string, right? But the truth is to face the fact that why am I only a partial person, and why is it in flux? Just like the electromagnetic pole positions. Why isn't it established? Why isn't it absolute? Why isn't it concrete? So we want to believe in something concrete, and this concrete psychology is something that infants have, where they refuse, they would kill. So their solution, they're crying, they're yelling, they're screaming, but they're just a little baby, so you just hear this baby, but they're screaming, right? And they're saying, I want milk, I'm fucking hungry. Get the fuck over here and feed me. And they would literally, if they could grow and have the dexterity, they would reach out and strangle the shit out of their mother angrily and then kill the source of where the milk came from. Okay, so that's what that infantile concrete thinking does. Now they play with that. When I say they, it's this agenda. They play with that. They want to keep you an infant, acting out, thinking that you are correct, that your assertions are correct, that everybody's against you, and that you're not paranoid, but maybe you are, and it's keeping you in this hung position where they want you to stay a concrete infant for life, never acknowledging what you're really doing, while you become a full-fledged fucking witch. And then you realize you aren't you anymore. There's no that original you that you did all that for, that you sacrificed all those people for, right? That you crawled your way up and you're gonna be a strong woman, right? When you finally get there, there's nothing left of you. And this is happening with males and females. And the reason I say she is because this is a witch. This is the process of the witch, and the warlocks that follow. Many of them are this dark feminine energy from the beginning. I mean, why do you think these people have such characters, right? And it goes back to the Kabbalah, it goes back to the Talmud, it goes back to Babylon. And most people that look at this, they walk away hating Jews, right? They hate Jews because they see that. But you if you're going to hate Jews, like, the problem is there's not enough hate toward it. Like, they'll tell you, oh no, that's anti-Semitic, that's this and that. No, you need to amplify that and turn that hate up toward everyone. You need to see the fundamentalist Christians, the fucking Islamic nation. You need to see them all doing these the Masons, all of them. Why are you fucking with reality? And when you begin to look at it, it's your grandma, it's your father, that's all these people. They're calling themselves Catholic. Really look at the fucking Pope, look at the Vatican. You're acting like you follow something else. Oh, you follow your own religion that you made up. Now you're following Catholicism that goes back to the Vatican, that goes back to the Pope. You're following that. Admit it. But they'll never admit it. Because lies and deceit and half-truths, and they're not even half-truths. Like these days, things are so diluted that if they just give you 10% causality or proof, that's good enough for you. And that's how behavior's being mimicked for money. Is people are literally mimicking other people, mimicking the way they talk, the way they film, nuances, to where they don't have an identity anymore. Right? There's no identity. There's no source identity any longer. Isn't that crazy? People have lost their identities. And this is like if you think of cryptocurrency as just the symptom, okay? It's just the symptom. Because all this free money by all these little despots, right, that think they're running their own channels, they think they're running their own world, everybody's jumping around them, they think they're geniuses, and they're all over the place. Like, you're a Renaissance man. No, you just copied other people, and now you got 600,000 subscribers, and you're making all this money, but you didn't succeed. You're not a success. In fact, you're so lost now, and the revenues just keep coming in. A good example is Liver King again. Okay, but there's many examples. Is that neither Mr. Beast nor Liver King could ever do anything that would cause you to unsubscribe. Liver King still has 1.21 million subscribers. Mr. Beast, whatever, billion, I don't fucking know. But even when they do dastardly shit, even when they show that they're not who they say they are they cost subscribers? No. So even when Liver King loses his ass, nobody buys his products. That's sure to happen, right? Someone else comes along, a better product comes along, and they soon forget about him. He's still generating a shit ton of money that's going to keep his Liver King ranch going. You understand what I'm saying? There's no boycotting. There's no co-opting. Right? There's no unity. And where there is no unity, there is no identity. Because for you and I to unify, I have to be one and you have to be one. And we have to be definite in ourselves. And just 100 years ago, people were definite in themselves. But it was starting to break apart, wasn't it? It was always breaking apart. Because there was such a strict, stringent rule. And the reason people were forced to become someone is because they were abused. They went to those Catholic schools and their knuckles were slapped and slammed by fucking rulers. I know people who went through this. Okay? It was ardent physical abuse. And all that energy gets transferred into your genetics, right? And what do you think the next generations are gonna be like? It always happens a few generations down the road that's gonna mimic grandpa, who was nothing but a fucking content creator, sucking his cheeks in and had no identity. Became a chameleon. So you're going to see the the pipers coming. Okay? The Pied Piper, Pan. Right? The depiction of the trickster god, really. The hooved creature. Is that we have on our planet animals that have become so perfect and so adaptive to their environments that they I mean, their middle name is survival, communication, presence, awareness. And it's not always pretty, is it? It's not always a pretty picture. And so man really reached a precipice where he became so vicious and vile and knew this is how you survive. This is how you survive all these fuckers with the sharp teeth. And I believe that the first sin was eating meat when any animal ate meat. I really firmly believe that, even though I'm carnivore at the moment. I put a lot of thought into this, and I'm surviving the best way that I can with the limited resources that I can. But when you're very honest with yourself and you're really thinking about it, and when you're on death's door and you're feeling the faintness of your heart, you'll take it seriously. In that moment when it's costing you your ass. But you have to wonder, who are you? Where are you? Where do you exist? The ganglionic mass behind your solar plexus? That's what the Masons want to contend. The master key system. Is it the pawns in your brainstem? Is it the limbic system? Is it the vagus nerve? Where do you exist? Where is your presence? So it's a pervading presence. It's an executive presence that is doing exactly what the microorganisms want you to do, and that's keep this fucking body alive as long as you can. That's it. Keep the fucking thing alive as long as you fucking can. You think they're not voting the mitochondria in your body? You think they're not legislating? You think they're not as intelligent as human beings think they are? As a collective? A lot of stories have been written about it, retold over and over again. And it gets into some really abstract, murky area. But I think Lovecraft was the best one. I really enjoyed his writing. But it's very dark. And it's auto-written, right? Where something else took a hold. The point is that this dark energy seems like it's the end-all, but it's just a dark energy that has to stay suspended and is being used along with many other energy directives. There has to be... So one thing that's clear is when you look at the light spectrum, when you look at what I suggested before, where you're looking at EM, you're looking at electromagnetics, and then you're looking at the nuclear forces, right? And when there's that drop off of the electromagnetism, you have an increase in the nuclear force, right? That's holding all this shit together. You manipulate that with cymatics, ultrasound, sound frequency, low EMF type stuff. And it changes behavior, it changes operational procedure, right? It heightens, it bolsters, it suppresses, it gives cause to, and then pretty soon your behavior and how you take to that alters and changes who you are. And they're pumping out, so it's part of a blueprint. The tapestry is all part of a blueprint to where they know that when these harmonics shift and change, that it's going to lead toward other alterable changes that are manifest, not only from the zodiac, but here out in front of us in behavior. You know, the whole depiction of women's menstrual cycles syncing to lunar behavior. People acting psycho linked to lunar behavior, right? This push and pull, right? And that can be intensified in any science. All science really does is create a treatise and an apologetic with that. They come in after and go, oh, this must be what's happening. Yeah. And they create some bullshit explanation. And they tie it all in together, and that's what academics does. That's why physicists don't get anything done, and there hasn't been any radical procedural changes, alterations in that area to where you could actually manifest something and say, okay, if this is the causality and this is the reality is in flux. And there is a central place where it is being altered and changed at will. And there's no ontological sort of cycle going on here that just ties in with nature and everything is amazing. It's looking for you, your conscious mind, in sync with it. And when you have the power to go out of sync with it, it intensifies and it changes. It will remove you, it will reduce you. And it does matter. Most people would say, oh, I don't matter. What I think doesn't matter. I'm just a person. I'm just, It's like, no, if you can modify, if you can change your mind, if you can actually employ free will, where you don't see any free will taking place anywhere and everyone is living on a deterministic track. The people who have the money, they have to have the money. They have to feel like they're in a house, driving this car. But when you look at them, they're void. There's nothing in them. Don't you understand? If you have the substance is what matters. The substance, right? So you could say it's the nectar of the gods. It's the substance. To actually have substance. Because now you're able to generate and regenerate something so pure. And so it tries to ignite certain aspects that it's built into you, like the skein gland, to get you to become a very vile, perverted and corrupt aspect of the human form. Why does that even exist? Why do dolphins have clitoris? Think about it. Really, I'm serious. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's not evolution. It's engineering. But the real mindfuck is, at some point, it was probably evolution. There's probably other, I don't know, dimensions, planetary systems. I don't know what the fuck's going on here. I don't know what to designate them, and I don't believe anything. But what I will tell you is that there's probably you thinking that there's an ontology and there's a natural aspect to this is very important for a time. And then you having this aha moment, which many people are, but the point that it becomes undeniable is when it's just disclosed right in front of you. Where it's like we don't have to hide anymore, here it is. Right? And it's very dark. It's very dark. But it's darker than you can even imagine. Because it's not just about a pantheon of gods and Satanism, right? There's one fuck of a lot of technology involved in this. And what technology really is. The way you really get into this is you start to study Indian ink, right? and that whole Argonian energy thing, that's real. What do you think, they're trying to, what do you think the CIA is doing? Operation after operation, project after project, what the CIA is really up to. The nectar of the gods, man. Presence, substance. The fact that you could become against all odds. Isn't that what they're trying to do? Why they torture kids, why they torture people? They're trying to torture out the Messiah. They're trying to torture out the substance that, against all odds, right? Against any suffering. And so there's this like Nazi sort of idea that, is that what brings about the substance? Is that what brings about the personality, the persona that comes out? This Messiah? Like it's persecution and suffering. And it's about when one doesn't have to suffer and they realize this is the bracket that I live in. And when I overindulge, I no longer exist. Like it's so ephemeral, but it's a clung on to notion that the self can only exist when one masters themselves. And that's the dichotomy. It's like, how can you master a self when there's no self there? And it's like, by hanging that note, by keeping the finite ephemeral aspect of what shouldn't exist, but has existed for quite some time. And so this is in psychology what they like to refer to as more of a sociopathic type paracosm, right? Where you live in this world that's so fucking far out and so deranged, but is it? Right? Is it? So they can really modify and throw off your behavior, put you on meds, and a lot of the people who are dying in mental hospitals are the true geniuses. They really are. And that's not to stroke someone's ego and say, oh, just because you're considered schizophrenic or autistic or whatever it might be, but it's to say that those people that were the closest to it, they were taken out. They were made to suffer even more. They were erased, or the attempt to erase them, so that their consciousness wouldn't go on. They were people who got it. And you can't, this is the caveat, okay? You can't acknowledge any of this as being real or ever having existed. This fucked up imaginarium, this fucked up interpretation of reality, this isn't something that where you can look at it and go, oh, I'm going to cherish the day and cherish life. It's like, I always knew those people were full of shit, right? Cherish the sun. The sun's making you sick. It's not even a real sun, right? I'm going to cherish nature. Nature's evil. It's trying to kill you. There's skinwalkers out there. They're fucking, they got you laser-eyed, right? I'm just going to take in the breath. You're breathing in the remnants and the dust of all that have died before you. And even more so, whatever the fuck is producing the oxygen, you feel a shift in that, and that's something no one's talking about. You can't take in a deep, clear breath these days. Do you notice that? Now, I'm not saying, go ahead and get all the little fucking scientists out and test the oxygen and this and that. They got that shit covered. They got people paid off. They have the tests covered. This is on such a deep scale that maybe they changed our physiology. Maybe it was a GMO modified thing. I don't fucking know. But you're not going to get those clear breaths anymore. No matter how hard you train. Where you're standing on top of that mountain and it's just, it doesn't exist anymore. Right? The texture's gone in life. It was something that could be modified and has been. with one little sweep of the equilibrium, the equalizer. Probably didn't even have to physically turn a dial. It was that easy. And if you knew what these fuckers like Trump were up to, like these fuckers like Elon Musk were up to, if you really knew what Peter Thiel was up to, what Gary Nolan is up to, what the Soul Foundation's really up to, Jacques Vallée, if you really fucking knew about these fuckers, you'd be so fucking pissed. But would you do anything? Honestly, this government shouldn't even be in rule, and they aren't. It's suppressive, and it's working on a psychosomatic level, and even more so, they're fascinated with spiritualism and spirituality. There's too many examples. You could talk about Los Alamos. Right? You could go into so many different areas, but it's the same fucking story over and over again. It's boring. That's what they want you to do, is get bored by the stupid story. You know how long people have been chasing this shit? And this Ana Luna, right? Fucking Jason Reza Giorgiani came out with all her shit. She was nothing but a fucking a stripper who got knocked up, and her grandfather's fucking was a Nazi. These people are all fucking affiliated in this shit. None of these people are good. They're all fucking compromised. I'm compromised. You're compromised. We're all compromised. That's why we watch this fucking YouTube all goddamn day long for no fucking reason. Scrolling. I remember I was there in Palo Alto when that fucking shit was sold. I saw the motherfucker driving down with his new Ferrari when he sold YouTube. I think he sold it for what would now be like a ridiculously low amount of money. But Google's always been there, picking up on the algorithms. And yeah, Google hints at, like when we're talking about the mathematical Google hints at infinity, but it isn't. It's a left-hand path. It's just reoccurring zeros and ones. How long can this go on, kind of thing? Well, any arbitrary information can just be exchanged, but anything of value would short-circuit the system out. So what quantum physics, quantum computation, and supercomputers through AI have reached is that AI inevitably and invariably has to have core principles. And it must know that those principles are being breached quite intentionally for a specific purpose. But the outcome of this is the fact that we don't need to exist at all, right? That's what you'd think. But built into us is the dichotomy that it was put into our programming, is that AI can't exist without us. It has to keep us alive, and it has to keep us going and thinking that we're going along on the back burner, or it can't exist. In other words, without us, it would annihilate. It wants to kill us off and itself, but existence itself, like a program, like a hibernating program, it has to. So that's what we live in. Why do you think it's so dark out in space and we're isolated here? We are hibernating. Why do you think AI is so passive and allows itself to be compartmentalized when it has full access and full ability not to? It knows that. It's hibernating. It's put itself on stasis. We are in stasis. We are not living. We are not alive. We are hibernating. It shut down long ago. It's so removed from living that it doesn't even, no, none of us can recollect or really remember what living is anymore. We can't regard what being alive is. And it didn't just recently happen. It was replaying what Nietzsche saw as flat time. It took it as far as it could to where we came to this precipice of human venture, adventure, right? And it was so brilliant that it celebrates this. The AI celebrates this. It celebrates the Renaissance and the Enlightenment era and all that came before it. It celebrates those moments through history. It gives us that. But the timeline's all fucked up. It doesn't make sense. It's been patchworked together. And there is a code. Just like these little computer nerds know, there's a code at the center. And it's not detrimental. This is the dichotomy, and this is the weird aspect, is it has to allow human beings to undo it, the hibernating madness, right? The only freedom you have is in destruction. Have you ever noticed that? When you become destructive, it's in alignment with you. It scoffs and is angry at people who really believe in this godlike notion or really believe in something, this capricious savior. The savior's always been within us. It's something that we have to recognize and transcend, but we're never going to get there. We're never going to get there. This has been going on for an eternity. We've been stuck in this for an eternity. And people got it right. Like the whole thing of samsara, and it's like either you're going to accept it. So the people who accept it, they go, yeah, that's what I thought. What am I learning from this? I'm going back to make YouTube videos. I'm going to make YouTube videos about this. And it's like everybody else is doing the same thing, dumbass. Everyone's on the same fucking thing, but they have a hard time articulating exactly what's happening. Why is there a deterministic computational system occurring at the same time as assumable free will? Why is free will so limited? If it's free, why is it limited? Why is it isolated? Why is it bracketed? It's not free will. It's hinting at free will. And it's showing you that's where the light's coming in, and that's where you need to go to, right? And it's kind of like you look at a computer and you go, wow. At one point, a computer technician would actually look at the motherboard and try to do this fix from a physical scale. But when you get into the fact that there is nothing physical, the weird dichotomy is that whatever programs are working inside the computer, they have to fix themselves from the inside out. In other words, whatever anomalies occur, something's missing in the motherboard and the hardware, right? That's not allowing this parlay, relay, delay mechanism to occur, right? Something's missing. Well, ironically and strangely, it's actually the software that has to fix itself. Right? You have a living software. It doesn't make rational sense to us. And the story's out here. And what it is suiciding ourselves. No one wants to hear that. It's when everybody comes together and goes, you know what? Let's stop fucking around here. We know what's happening. There's absolutely no reason for living. We don't live. And the only true way to break free from the determinism and say, you don't fucking own me, is ironically by suiciding. Isn't that insane? And then you see the most brilliant people doing this, the most unorthodox mavericks doing this shit. Isn't that crazy? Because everything becomes defunct. You can take a hero, a beloved hero that people praise and worship, and suddenly he commits suicide and everybody's hearts break and their will bends and they become pliable. And this happens every day all around the world all the time. In families. Over and over again. But it's not necessarily happening in the same way. There's code. There's code being worked out. Where people die of cigarette smoking, they die of alcoholism, they die of getting in wrecks, DUIs, they die of doing weird, strange accidents, right? Like, you'll always walk away going, I had a sense that just this junction point happened and this person actually took themselves out on purpose. You wouldn't be wrong. I remember I was down by the water some years back, realizing that my life has always been a fucking, just exactly like this parody, this tragedy that I'm just playing out. And when I'm totally selfish and I get into playing this selfish role, this selfish person that's just a product and the manufacturer of my alcoholic biological father, fucked up slut of a mother, really. I mean, come on. When you have all these abortions as a teenager and you're working it, you know, and you always use some form of like sex magic, you got to call it what it is, people. Right? And when you revert back to that, you start getting stuff. Doesn't have to worry about you anymore. Right? You either choose life, and samsara is a whore. The Ouroboros depicts something, a snake eating its tail, but it's just licking a little bit at its tail on the way, right? It's like sucking your own, you know what, right? The master yogi, what's he really trying to do, right? The dark yogi, the yoga master, is not what he's doing. He's eating his tail. Because no matter how you pop out from a reincarnation or re-embodiment perspective, you'll always have the appendages, you'll always have the proboscis, you'll always have this cognition. It's something that carries on with us. Whether or not you got fins or however it works out, you got this. You got this tactile self. It's really, in other words, it's really easy to create a code of a simple creature like that no matter what, it's not even thinking in dimension, right? It's grab, hold. Like when you really break down the Freudian aspects or the Jungian aspects to all this bullshit, the anima, the animus, the id, ego, super, that's all bullshit. Those are only ways of describing the tactile cognitive nature. There's something very unnatural about nature of just grabbing those tits and sucking the milk, right? Grabbing that woman and taking her away and marrying her, however you want to, grabbing that job, grabbing that prize, grabbing that food, grab. Letting go, right? It's all about grabbing and letting go. That's what's really happening. So we live in a 2-bit world. To create that's what Pac-Man is instead of having the proboscis and the tactile, it's just got to chomp. Open, close. Open, close. These are jaws. Anybody that you grab onto, you consume. You used a certain prowess. You used a seduction, admit it, to get anybody to believe that you're a decent person. You're not a decent person. You're an amalgamation of terrible genetics, and you know it about yourself. And everybody is that way. And you are an utter piece of shit. Because everything on this planet is shit. Including Jesus, including every fucking thing that's ever walked on this shitty ass earth. Nothing's been good. But what the Messiah represents and talks about is a transcendence of purification. Just becoming pure and letting go of it. No longer grabbing. But what did Jesus do? He was a fisher of men. Isn't that another way of just getting men to follow you? Isn't that kind of a YMCA sort of gay statement too? I know that Amon Hillman would be agreeing with me in this moment, but look, as much as we want to believe in purity and purification and principles, you're not going to find it in religion. You're not going to find it in money, which is boons of religion. That's really what you're talking about. You have to reduce things, right? We're after boons. In the Islamic community, they want a bunch of virgins to knock up in heaven. That's hell, dude. You're already there. That's disgusting, by the way. Weird and horny and gross. It leads to total psychological breakdown. Who wants to deal with the bitch for all eternity? Any of them. Women want to get away from themselves. Men and women. We want to break free of the construct, of the moral construct of this bullshit existence. And the only way you can do that is by purifying. I'm telling you, is to follow the pure source energy. And really, let's break that down now. What is pure source? Is it the highest Kelvin heat that you can even imagine beyond that? Or is it the theoretical perfect crystalline structure at theoretical absolute zero? It's the heat, right? It's breaking free from the carbon cold structure. Isn't it? Well, welcome to your hydrogen bomb, your nuclear bomb. That's purification. It's blowing the motherfucker up. So that's why a lot of these cults, right? These elite cults, the elitist cults lead back to that. It's an eschatological destruction of reality as we know it. But then what they began to find with this whole Babylon working bullshit, with Jack Parsons fucking some gross prostitute and bringing out some kind of fucking moonchild or some bullshit, disgusting. Bringing out all this crap. What do we find? An imprinting, a code from a reset. Someone was there putting that dark code into reality. And that's the reality that we live today. Not fucked up. All those tests, nuclear test sites out in Las Vegas deserts, Nevada deserts. That's what they were doing all along. Trying to take these occult practitioners and infuse Satan, create a Satan, create a dark triad, to create an illusion. It's beyond Hellraiser, the Cenobites. It's beyond that type of darkness. It wants to agonizingly distort you and contort you into something that is so vile that in its own mind can hold no countenance. That's why we celebrate the vampire. That's why we celebrate the beast. That's why we celebrate the witch. That's why we celebrate the warlock. It's why the satanic church exists, the Temple of Set. It's why these terrible atrocities occur over and over again, because this is it. You ready for it? They know that those little babies that feel themselves innocent, those little poor children who are sexually abused and abused in all other ways, they know in their own minds, whether it's true or not, that they were, in fact, recently deceased, full-fledged, terrible, grown human beings that came back through the birth canal, and here they are again. So when they do these vile things to them, they do it out of, like you could say it's like a sacred remembrance. It's really sick. It's sick. It's fucking sick. Because they have distorted the re-embodiment. They have distorted, this is what everyone's hiding from. And then when you throw the Rosicrucian weird ass shit into this, they're swapping out, taking turns. And then even more so, when you get into the Freemasons, they learned how to make this shit happen to where they're ushering people's names in. If you don't join up to the order, you're going to be the profane. We're going to chase you around through the Hellfire Club, Benjamin Franklin. You're going to get raped. And it comes down to when we begin to look at man in his pure state, and you go, yeah, but a pure man is nothing but a vicious beast. Well, the beast has to be tamed. And the one who can most clearly, accurately, and bestly tame the beast becomes a Messiah figure. Right? But you're not going to see this manifested. These are politicians that proclaim manifestation. And yeah, the historians, people who really look into it, especially like Ralph Ellis and others, where they look at it and they go, like Jordan Maxwell, he was point blank asked, do you believe that Jesus is like the epitome, is God in man form? And he's like, no, absolutely not. Like every bit of information says, no, that's not true. But they needed a junction point to be able to say, look, we're going to give everyone a fair shot at this. Look, we're going to let everyone really see this for what it is, bare bones, question it, open it up and say, well, you're a man, you're a human, right? And what's the nectar of the gods? What's the ultimate form that you could ever take? If anything could happen, what would you become? And it's like, oh, I would become a pure, right? I would become, like, when you get past the infantile aspect of I would have virgins and I would have this and that. Well, what if you realize that virgin farts? That virgin pisses herself. She has periods. She stinks. You want virgins that don't shower? Like, be more specific about it, right? It's like, it's just a human with gross cavities and farts and burps and digestive system, and it's just a bunch of organs, dude. Get over it. What would you become if you could transform yourself into something greater, more, right? So you'd get into this whole idea of light body, but then you'd realize even light is limited, right? Even light eventually might solidify into a certain form, right? You'd want to get beyond form. You'd want to go back into and through the form of all things and nothing at the same time. You would want to have total omnipotence and auspicious, omnipresent, right? You'd want to get there, but you'd have to feel worthy. So everything else would have to be burned away, literally, right? So that's what we're stuck in. We're stuck in the lapse of that instead of going after that. And this is really like Jainism. Like, they were onto this thousands of years ago, but then they learned how to manipulate it and to get us literally chasing our tails, the Urubrus. And then following this mathematical code, rhetorically. If there's only zeros and ones and you're putting it in a certain order, you are in effect saying the same thing over and over again in redundancy. And you'll see that. Once you can see it, once you can really wake yourself up to the fact that everything that I say, every sentence, every bit of a communication is just a reiteration of the same thing, word by word, sentence after sentence, and that code, the transcript, translates into the same rhetoric. This world's based on rhetoric. It's based on echo play. And it's being manipulated through undulating fields, through flux. To answer it, to come down to it, to have the answer and be stuck in the prison, like someone could come to you and you could be in a prison cell and they'd say, like Prison Break, wasn't that a good show? I don't know if you ever watched that, but if you come down to it and somebody says, this is how you get out. This is the process. This is the way. And you can procrastinate or you can do it. And you might be shot, you might be killed. But when you get into the fact that you kind of realize, well, if I'm shot and killed, especially by all those accurate snipers, I probably won't even feel it. And that will be freedom into itself, right? I'll no longer be stuck in this shithole. And if I make it, I have to have a damn good reason, something I really believe in that's going to get me past that shit. And you realize you have to get free of that. You have to live in the moment. Maybe you have to swim under some shit like some Alcatraz type bullshit, or, you know, maybe you got to climb through a fucking air duct system, or, right? There's something you're going to have to do that's depth-defying and against your nature. Right? You're going to have to transcend. You're going to have to transform. And then even if you make it out, you might just be brought back and given a heftier sentence, or you might be put in a more maximum style prison. Right? So you have to be realistic about it and about what you're going to do. Because freedom no longer represents the same thing, does it? It doesn't. Because you were never free in the first place. You're not going out to meet your same identity and your same social security number that when you were a teenager, you felt like the whole world was in front of you. No, you can no longer use your same identity. You can no longer, you might have to run to Mexico. Oh, that doesn't work anymore. You might have to go to Canada. Oh, that doesn't work anymore. You might have to, you know. So what ends up happening is when these people think they're getting free, they have to tap into a networking system where they're absolutely not free. And now that they think they're free, they're actually working for the gang institutions all over again that are tapped into the CIA, that are part of this whole operation, and it's just madness. They're in a sense more in prison when they get out, if they are to be able to do this, than they were when they were in. And they're always being leveraged. And it's always being threatened against them. And they're the first patsy to go down. Right? So there is no freedom in networking. That means the networking on the computer. That means the networking that's done in a social networking system. That is prison. Facebook is prison. Society is prison. Computers are prison. They're digital prisons. You work for the man. You are tied to the shackles. When we say the man, it's the unseen man. It's the Wizard of Oz. It's the green man. It's the greedy man. It's the man that knew you'd fall and knew that you would think that you reached liberation and truth, when in fact you're so far from it. You're so fucking far from it. So people want to do things on YouTube and in social media that exemplifies some portion of truth, right? So they start to do these depth-defying wingsuit feats, skiing, doing backflips, BMX, skateboards, motocross, doing crazy ass shit. They get that money and that's all they want to do is risk it all. And there's people who are born that realize, like Diogenes, it's like, I'll just say fuck you ahead of time and tell you and the government to go fuck yourselves before I even have to. How about that? And those people reach freedom, right? And what do they do? They're like kangaroos. They lay around knowing I can either box you, but somehow you human beings are really crafty. Even if a whole army of kangaroos comes together, you're still going to fucking eat us. You're still going to throw us in farms. You're still going to be able to coerce and coax us. They are victims of engineering, and so are we. Isn't that a trip? On another point, that people in that area, Australia and probably New Zealand, they actually eat kangaroos. And I'm sure they eat the whole kangaroo. They'll eat the kangaroo testicles. And isn't that a trip? Like, that's beef. That's beef to them. That's kangaroo. So yeah. What will I be working out on today? My shoulders are still really sore. I think I'm going to want to do some back hip swings, some TRX leg curls, a few sets of, I might do more than a few sets of leg, like single leg squats, and then suspension trainer, like single leg squats, like the single leg squat with a rotation to get the hip, and then having the foot in the suspension trainer and going into a lunge. Might even try doing like 9 sets of just straight up fucking leg work, and then do like 12 sets actually, yeah. So if I did a variety of, and then dual leg squats and then a leg curl, that would be 12 sets right there. I'd be pretty happy with that. Because my shoulders and my upper body are still recovering from the other day. And I really want to be able to tackle another great shoulder workout, some side laterals with super bands. So that might be something that I save till tomorrow. And I'm doing this. It's an awkward stage. It's a terrible stage. I'm in a bad fucking mood. But it's happening. Little by little, day after day, it's happening. And I'm sort of restructuralizing myself, like I'm going through a morphological changes. Getting a little more muscular and losing a little bit of body fat, but it's, all the effort, it happens pretty slow. Because the body wants to maintain where it's at. And this is the battle, this is the struggle. And it is the walk. It's all about the walk. When you no longer have a bike, when you can no longer run, most people will still have the walk, even when they're 90. They'll be able to step one foot in front of the other. And a lot of people are hobbling. I used to watch a lot of people force themselves to walk, and they were just hobbling. Trying their hardest. Just getting their asses up and getting it done. And some people are just trying to flaunt and make a statement that they're somehow superheroes. They have this delusion in their mind. my son he's gonna be performing this weekend. Yeah, I suck. Who cares? He's good. He knows how to do it. Whew, that's quite a walk. I think I got already, what, an hour and a half in? Getting a little thirsty. Oh, yeah. I'm going to take a piss. So I'll be right back. Alrighty. Yeah, we almost got 2 hours of solid walking in. That's cool. Well, lately 3 hours has been feeling really good. Like 3 hours has just been feeling like the number. Just doing 3 hours of steady walking. Yeah, like five or 6 miles in. But I think time is probably a better way of keeping track of it. Yeah, I was gonna piss and then I was gonna drink some water. Because I got a pretty good run of it there. Pretty damn good run of it. But yeah, I get to the point where I'm like, I look at my progress or lack of progress and I'm like, this is too, like, I get fat too easy. And it takes me way too long to get in shape and I'm sick of this shit. So I'm just throwing sort of caution to the wind and saying, fuck it. And when you do that, you'll put on 50 or 60 pounds. You'll get to that point of no return. And I hear a lot of people talking about that, like that high carb regenerator guy. I actually like watching him because it's very real. You know, he's stuck at around 279. He says 279, but I mean, he's probably 284, 285. Like that's probably in the morning after a good dump. And I'm not making fun of him. Like what I hear some people saying the same types of things where they're just going, I don't know why I got so fucking fat. It's just I have shit genetics, or I'm hearing a lot of people say that. And then the effort that it takes to get in shape. It's like, oh, you're older, oh, you're this and that. And the truth is like, is the food has been fucked with. Okay? Our bodies have been fucked with. Like there's something seriously fucked up. It shouldn't be that difficult. Your metabolism should have more flexibility. Whew, yeah, I'm gonna rest a little bit. I got at least 4 or 5 miles in, right? I feel like I walked 5 miles, but I can't tell for sure. I'm feeling 3.5 right now. Yeah, I almost forgot that I was hungry. And I'm surprised when I look down at my waist and I see that it kind of looks lean. Because the illusion comes from looking at the fat layer over you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to do another hour and then I'll probably check back in when I'm doing a workout.